May 29, 2024 Arts Commission meeting. We'll start off with our meeting.
So we are recording. It is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. Welcome to the Boulder Arts Commission meeting. I will call roll. Cheryl Cardoso, not here. Yaled Weil. Georgia Schmidt. Here. Caroline Kirk.
Here.
Jeffrey Cash. Maria Cole.
Here.
Jill Paxton.
Here.
I will now hand over the meeting to the chair for procedural items.
Great. So with a quorum, we'll first approve the agenda for tonight. Anybody have any changes? Okay, all in favor? Nice. Wonderful. All right. Our land acknowledgement. The city of Boulder acknowledges that the city is on the ancestral homelands and unceded territory of indigenous peoples who have traversed, lived in, and stewarded lands in the Boulder Valley since time immemorial. Those indigenous nations include the Apache, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Comanche, Pawnee, Shoshone, Sioux, and Ute. The city of Boulder recognizes that those now living and working on these ancestral lands have a responsibility to acknowledge and address the past and must work to build a more just future. And I know that last month at the meeting, there was reference to how can we make some more to-dos related to that. And Georgia and I have come up with a bit of a plan that will work into some agendas coming up and start to flesh that out. All right.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Will you be including indigenous folks that we're trying to honor in those conversations? I think that would be helpful.
We will, but
So I'm gonna say no. And the reason is why, because it's not up to the oppressed to educate the oppressed. So it's our work to go out and find the information that we need. You know, we can run that idea by them and see if that sounds like it's in alignment with what they need, but it's not their job to tell us.
so that's, and that kind of folds into my yes, is that there are a lot of resources out there that have been created from these peoples that we're gonna draw upon, and that'll be part of the conversation.
Okay, so obviously we'll have more discussion about this
Yes.
in the future.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then we talked about asking if any other.
I think that's later on in the agenda, so. Great, so we'll move on to approving the minutes from last month, and I'm gonna recuse myself since I wasn't here. Anybody changes to the minutes? Motion?
I'll second.
All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, public participation. We have some initial reminders about how this section of the meeting will work. I'll turn that over.
All right, so these are the public participation guidelines. I'm just gonna read them off as they're stated. So the
Will you see really well? So
Yes. Yes. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusion civic conversations. This vision supports the physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and council, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, you can visit the website listed on the slide. The following are examples of rules of decorum. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during the meetings. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak in advance and use the name they are commonly known by. Individuals must display their full name before being allowed to speak online. In-person participants are asked to refrain from expressing support or disagreement verbally or with applause. Traditionally, support is shown silently through American Sign Language applause or jazz hands.
Thank you. Is there anyone online? Sign up?
I think everyone is in person who has signed up in advance. So first to speak is Jeff Mitch.
And we'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah. I can,
Okay. Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Nitch, and I'm professor of composition and director of the Entrepreneurship Center for Music at CU. During my 30+ years as an educator, arts administrator, and artist, I've seen the grant process from every side, more times than I can count. And there's something I've learned that I think is important for us to remember this evening. Consensus is always our goal, because speaking with a unified voice breeds confidence in the outcome for everyone involved. But consensus is not always possible. And when it's not, it's important that we have a process to deal with that. Whenever there is particularly one person with a dramatically different view of a proposal, I've learned that it is always going to be due to one of two things. Either the dissenter has information that the rest of the group is not aware of, or there's something personal going on that they thought were judgment. So when the group asks for an explanation of why the holdout feels the way they do, that's not attacking anybody. That's not trying to marginalize, and it's certainly not trying to silence the minority opinion. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The group is saying, please tell me what you know, so the rest of us can make an informed decision. For example, I didn't realize that the executive director is currently serving time for embezzlement. That's useful information that if the rest of the group is not aware of it, you need to be able to. But this additional information has to be concrete. It has to have verifiable facts so that everyone can evaluate it objectively. Failing that, the dissenter must either recuse themselves out of a basic sense of fairness and ethics, or there must be a process for the majority will of the commission to hold sway. Otherwise, a single person can dictate the outcome of every case, and to allow that would fundamentally undermine the integrity of the process. We must remember too that the implications for this go far beyond this particular round of grants. It reaches the core of the confidence the public has placed in all of you to administer your dollars, the taxpayers' dollars, fairly and accurately. I encourage the commissioners to bear this evening.
Can you repeat what you said, something about someone is under investigation for investment?
No, I use this as an example.
Oh, okay.
If one person of the committee was aware that somebody was, serving time for a crime, and the rest of us weren't aware, that would be an example of, please, by all means, please share that,
Yeah.
because that would influence our decision.
I bet that.
That's a hypothetical example,
Right,
yes.
thank you.
And a little bit tongue in cheek.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Michael Ambrosino.
Hypotheticals for you, and as a jazz programmer for 40 years, I've always been curious, where did jazz hands come from? Boulder Arts Commission, thanks very much for the opportunity to briefly speak tonight. I'm Michael Ambrosino. I'm an independent audio producer and jazz journalist that just recently moved to this beautiful state from Portland, Oregon. I'd like you all to imagine if just for a weekend, Boulder became the epicenter of a national conversation in spoken word poetry. Imagine if several young local poets had the chance to listen, learn, and grow with the support of an elite class of regional and nationally renowned spoken word artists. Just imagine that. Imagine the joy and inspiration that comes from finding your voice and then arranging it with rhythm, harmony, and the melodic nuance of an art form that demands nothing less than shaping truth into being. Imagine if this moment in time was the start of grander things for Boulder's spoken word community, potentially launching careers for these courageous young poets that we will be educating. We'll have the opportunity to perform in front of family, friends, and mentors. Finally, imagine if all of this could spark unique new dialogues in Boulder about race, gender, poverty, personal identity, and any variety of the world's wicked problems that deeply affect these poets and their work. I am daring to imagine this opportunity through a documentary and outreach project I'm calling Wordplay, Spoken Word Poetry and Jazz. And I sincerely hope that you will imagine this as well. Thanks for your time and consideration. If you have any comments or questions, I'm sitting right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have dates for anything like that, or?
The proposal said we had until June 25th.
Okay, great. Thank you. And did anybody else in the audience?
I came in late and Willow called. I don't know, I still have time to talk.
Yeah.
Wait, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Were you referring to something specific that I'm supposed to know
In what context? What
Like,
context is
about?
that?
You're just saying that you have a project that's coming?
So this is I have proposed a project that is up for funding through the Boulder Arts Commission. And it's with Lisa Marie Simmons, who is an African-American poet. She now lives in Italy, and she was born and raised in Boulder. So she's gonna come back to Fairview High School and take some of the kids and do an educational program. And then we're also planning to have a lecture series and a performance. And this all coincides with a nationally broadcast documentary on the subject of how spoken word poetry has been infused with the whole sensibility of jazz for the African diaspora that I hope will be broadcast nationally. So I hope I'm in the right room.
So you're speaking in support of a grant that you have submitted?
Yes.
Okay.
Arts education. All right.
So, yeah.
And then, yeah, we have, Willow John.
Yes. First of all, I apologize for being here late. I had, my name is Reverend Willow John Holloman, and I started a new spiritual community here in Boulder called the House of Loving Awareness. We're dedicated to direct enlightenment personal experience, which is either music, laughter, dancing, play, natural medicine, anything that brings you joy, brings you closer to your source. I'm not getting a grant this time. I just want to call and meet people and say hi and thank you for everyone for reading my application. I just want to read a little bit about my music program. So. Yeah. The Youth Music House, we empower empowering underserved youth through music. The Youth Music House is an inclusive program dedicated to providing free music education and creative opportunity to underrepresented youth in Boulder ages 13 to 18. Our program targets individuals from low-income backgrounds, non-neurotypical youth, and those lacking access to other opportunities, fostering a passion for music that enriches their lives and inspires creativity. The key program elements are diverse musical styles. Most kids in schools, they have an opportunity to learn sort of the classical chamber kind of music and stuff like that, and we would like to move and offer them opportunities to learn punk rock, grunge, rap, EDM, classical rock, American rock and roll, American music. Our programs runs Monday through Friday, 3 to 6, offering structured time for lessons, workshops, and independent practice sessions. They will be happening at the schools if you volunteer to staff in schools for a couple hours. We get donations for drums, guitar, bass, and vocals. And after the kids there, basically the opportunities already set up, the locations already set up, and they just have information and instruction for people who do different musical sort of things. Collaborate with local studios, schools, music spaces, and share accessibility through donated musical instruments. It's a nonprofit. Inclusive outreach, folks outreach, target on underserved communities, low-income communities, people of different backgrounds that don't have necessarily access to instruments and money or practice space. They do have practice space in the cities around the country and stuff, but they cost about $25 to $35. Committed to making our performances accessible to audiences from all walks of life, promoting equity, inclusivity within the community. By providing free music education, we address disparities in access to art and cultural resources, ensuring that all youth have the opportunity to engage and contribute to the cultural life of the community. Yeah.
We have a 2-minute time.
Okay, is that, I have
Maybe one wrap.
last one, okay, let me wrap it up. All right, so cognitive benefits, you enhance cognitive functions, memory, attention, problem solving skills, it improves academic performance. It improves coordination, motor skills, reduces pain, recovery from medical conditions. And it's a means for emotional expression, regulation, and process of emotional and physical stress, especially since after the COVID, we know that a lot of our youth are struggling to reach and catch up from all the programs that we're not opportunity for a couple years.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Can you remind me the name of your
Yes, House of Loving Awareness.com, and I will leave a couple of cards up here if anybody wants to. I'm an affiliate also of Willow John TV, which is a production company that's also affiliated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you again.
Nice to meet you again. I recognize you from Savory.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And my questions on the application were, what were the outreach, what were the numbers of impact? How many were you anticipating?
Okay.
Which I saw your response on that. And then the other question was, which I don't think I got answered, was, is this a faith-based admission?
So the church is non-denominational. It's open to anybody who wants to explore spirituality, not religion. For me, spirituality is any access to joy in life, any access to community, any access that makes your life more connected to the life around you, to nature, to compassion, to creativity, stuff like that. So yeah, I do believe that faith is very important for a community, that having any sort of faith, whatever you believe in, is important. And it helps people to strengthen.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you're welcome.
All right, as promised, we're gonna dive in. We've got about 10 minutes on the agenda to talk about how we're gonna move forward on the land acknowledgement. Sort of strengthening what we can do as a commission. Jordan and I are both interested in moving this forward and feel like it is a better use of everybody's time to do that outside of the meetings. So the proposal is to create a committee to go over this work. And I think you may have more details about how big that committee can be. and-
Sure, if it's 2 people, we don't have to do anything formal, but I would help you, I would obviously come and help you submit things. If it's 3 people, we would need to put notifications in the video camera, so it takes a little bit more, because it would be like a public meeting and I would use 2 minutes. So, and I'm happy to do either, to be sure that you're all satisfied with your updated, land acknowledgement, but just to.
So what we'd like to do tonight is get self-nominations or who's interested in joining the 2 of us to kind of dig into this. Look at the resources that are available that have been created by Indigenous nations and research groups and see what's a good fit for Boulder within and pair that with what the commission has within their power and their scope of work to really engage in. Anybody else interested in joining us?
Oh, you're looking to do a little of economics or?
Oh, well, within the commission, this would be a commissioner's own. Yeah.
I guess to support my previous statement, I feel like we should have 3 people, because I think it should be advertised in the daily camera. Sorry, Georgia, I disagree with you. I think you need to ask the community their opinion on this, so that's why I think there should be 3 people.
So that's information that I got straight from an indigenous group. And I believe that Lauren has reached out to an indigenous group, like saying, what should we do in understanding? But to what Carolyn said, there's a lot of information that indigenous groups have put out there that we can tap into.
I guess my point is still, if you did it publicly, then we would we would vet that. If no one shows up, no one's interested, I think I would be satisfied that we've done our due diligence to hear all the voices. So that would make sense to me. If you need a third person to join your committee to make it public, I can do that. But I don't know if someone else, would like to do that instead.
I'm in agreement with Maria from her point that she brought up earlier. I was actually going to ask if I could suggest and volunteer you for doing that, since I'm working on a couple other committee items right now as well.
So, sure, I'm happy to do that, and like I said, I think it's important to have that advertised. And if no one shows up, then like, I think we've done, for me, I feel like we've done.
And if there are other people on the commission who are interested, we certainly don't need to cap it at 3. If it's gonna be announced, it's gonna be announced, and you know, if there's anybody else raising their hand now, and I'm seeing nobody. We'll leave it at that, and report back to you guys.
We nominate Cheryl, which is.
Exactly. All told. Okay. We'll connect between the 3 of us and figure out when to advertise. Thank you. All right, liaison updates. If anybody has had a chance to meet with new liaisons, some information about what's going on out there in the world of our general operating support grantees, it's the time to share this.
So I have made a couple pitches for Fest. It happened. It was fabulous. I went to 4 concerts in a whole cross section of venues across the city, and a hike. And I just thought they got there's some folks that come internationally to the Fest, and I thought they really represented Boulder well, and I recommend everyone go next year. I think they're going to have a house concert in the fall, so it's really fun. And then Boulder has a new exhibition up, and they're still moving forward on their North Boulder campus.
Right. Yeah, I saw that in the exhibit at the. I went to the Boulder Free Festival, and actually was there every day, and then we something that was supporting Black owned businesses. They got to walk around a lot and all from the stages. It was great turnout. I was a little bit disappointed that the park is in the Boulder office parking lot got polluted. They were that presence for the festival. It would have been nice to see more and see any Appleton food vendors. You know. But that's great. And a couple weeks ago, I got to go to the Colorado Creative Industries Summit for 2 days, and it was amazing. Saw a lot of indigenous groups that own their group, and just their resonance and vibrancy was powerful.
Yeah, my report out is mostly about the CCF conference on sales. Kind of noodling on a couple of ideas, it always sparks a lot of thoughts when you get to see how people are running programs or what they're doing in their cities. You get to see a lot of what is going on. Pueblo and sat in on a granting session. There was kind of feedback from applicants about things that work well. Nothing concrete to make of it yet, just don't kind of see. Hopefully, I'm waiting I've reached out to a couple of my liaisons, but haven't heard back. To down a couple of the groups. But I guess no good news is good news. So, anybody else or opening it up to other topics from the community that you know aware about them?
For liaisons, I recently met with leadership and development over at Lotus Theater, got to see their lovely shared offices downtown, talked about the programming for the next 6 months. Went in depth on their history with the commission over the last several years, and was able to get more engaged with what they have coming up over the next year. And we've got calendar invites and work with connecting them with a couple of collaborative organizations here in town. Executive director from Fest reached out to me just to see if we'd be around that weekend. Unfortunately, we're going home weekend. But he and his wife become friends through other music worlds, and I made sure that he knew that Maria was always such a wonderful voice for them on the commission, and encouraging voice of that. Boulder has just finished their very successful season, and it's been great being engaged with them throughout the entire process as a liaison. And the Museum of Boulder, Bob Yates is sadly a near citizen now, as they have coming in, and I know he will never be near citizen. They have hired an executive director. They did a national search, and the new gentleman will be coming to Boulder soon. So we are excited for that.
On the topic of the broader community, I don't know if anybody saw, but former Commissioner Bruce Borowski he's very involved with the Ute tribes and is working on a project, making a documentary, and he has done a call out for people who are interested in coming, learning on the job, doing not necessarily an internship, but on the site job training. So if you know somebody that may be interested in that, it'd be valuable to reach out to Bruce.
What's the contact
Bruce Borowski, and I
can send it to you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know it off the top of my head. Great. All right, Lauren, grants program.
Yes. So we're going to begin with the community projects for individuals. And you have the option to approve the staff recommendation of the highest scoring grants, approve individual grants, or postpone approval of individual grants pending answers to specific questions. We are now versed in that as well. These are the 5 highest scoring for the community projects for individuals category. You'll note that one of your fellow commissioners is a projected grantee. So I wrote separate motion language because you need to keep yourself for that vote in particular. But as is custom, you're welcome to discuss these, to think about these more broadly as far as your funding portfolio. But we do recommend your highest scoring. If anybody's interested, I have motion language on the next slide. Please. So the first is the one without Nancy Georgia.
Wait, is this where I leave?
No,
Are you doing
the
the
first
one?
part is with the whole group, so if anybody would like to make a motion.
Can I first say that I was really impressed with this whole group. So
Yeah.
it was an honor and a pleasure.
I move that Creativity Alive, Chelsea Albertson, Ivan Daniel Espinoza, and Hear Us Now, See Us Now be awarded grants in the community project for individual category.
I'll second.
And time for discussion, if anybody had any points, you can vote on this. It's okay. All right, it's all in favor? Unanimous. And as is our typical practice, if we have anything that we want to say before Georgia leaves, the quality of the applications in general. But I would echo what Georgia said. I felt like my scoring was very narrow within the range, with maybe a few outliers because everybody's this was really great, and I wish we had money to fund it all.
I kept wanting to say like, let me on your email, it's like, I wanna see this thing. That's great.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, adding to this.
Excellent. All right, you're gonna use yourself.
Program.
Thank you.
All right. Gonna call for a motion.
I move that Dance with Georgia be awarded a grant in the community project for individuals category. Second.
All in favor? Okay, all opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Oh.
So there,
Just a moment, if you have a question, I'm gonna ask that you come to the front of the table, so the recording can pick you up if you have a brief question. Sure.
Our microphone is,
It's on this now, we got the tech.
okay.
Yeah, but just so they can see you.
so there's no other funding opportunities other than the top 5.
Not, they, occasionally, there will be additional funding that we have granted in the end of the seasons. If more money in our general pool opens up, that's always a discussion that we have a little bit later, and we don't have our funds left over. Is there anything you want to say about the process?
That's right. For the individuals category, there were 5 awards. It's pretty firm. Like we build the program out in October with the grant breakdown, or with the breakdown. So, there's 5.
And it's based on the budget, correct? So I think if we had picked, for instance, projects with smaller budgets. Programs.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll also say, I love when I see collaboration, because that allows more people to get grants. Like, I know that the your programs are different, but you're both in the realm of music, so. I was wonder, that's what I was thinking when you two were saying that, is helping them collaborate.
I think the proposal ad is a very hard sell. It's not often they will try to pitch a national documentary associated with some type of social practice. So I was enthusiastic that you responded the way you did, but I wasn't very optimistic that it would be. So I appreciate the opportunity to try and get it.
Yes,
Please do.
and I'm sure, you know, there's other grants.
In general, it's really hard to deal with DEI work in jazz. They're not.
Can you, if you're interested, I would be interested in helping you, I volunteer some of my time to help you find some.
I would love that.
So you can find my email is on.
I can send it to you also.
Are you?
Lauren Flynn,
Sorry.
or Kennedy too, one or
Sorry
the
for
other.
calling you just.
Oh, no, I don't mind at all. Yeah.
Just because I've recently been exploring all the grants, so I'll just share my.
I would really love that. As an individual, it's exceptionally hard to dig into those things.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go do some more programming.
Thank you for being here. All right.
Next.
Reports.
Thank you. We have 2 grant reports, 2 arts education reports, the Tutu Dance Company and Manhattan Middle School. You have the options to approve them, approve individual ones, approve while submitting specific questions, plus you postpone approval, or not approve individual reports and cancel the final 20%. And we do have some recommended.
Some conversation or make the motion first?
Make the motion first.
I'll move that we approve grant reports from T2 Dance Company and Manhattan Middle School.
I will second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry, I skipped right over here.
It's all positive. T2 Dance, where I love the intersection of the visual arts and dance. It's just lovely images. I'd like to know how many students and families were impacted. I didn't see that in there before. I don't think approval, in my opinion, approval is not contingent on that, but I feel like that's important information. Manhattan Middle School, I thought they did a really nice job with the report. And they did talk about 800 students impacted, 150 people that came to the event. So I like those. I think those metrics are helpful to us to better understand the impact of the grants.
And just by way of overview because we have a new commissioner in the room, Lauren normally has a screen up that says that the commissioners have 3 choices typically. Do you have that language?
We do.
Okay.
What we have, so is it before this time?
Yeah.
Correct? So in this version, it sounds like you're on the way to approving all of the reports with specific questions. So we would approve them, I would send the payment, but I would still ask that they send a follow-up response to that. And then I would include it in the packet next time for you to all see the response. If there are bigger concerns, if you have like serious concerns about the report, you can also postpone the approval with a vote to postpone it. And I can ask some questions and get some follow-ups.
But I'm not hearing that.
Not in my opinion.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And Maria, O kindred spirit, I had some thoughts on the visuals from T2, again, questioning what was the reach? How many people were experienced the art, but seeing that they were at, I think, 4 venues, I felt secure in approving that, but that made me so happy about the Manhattan School when I saw the numbers
Yeah.
included, and it just my numbers heart.
I felt that as well. That really popped out to me.
I was a theater tech kid, so that whole thing made me really happy. And I love that there's like projects like this that are not just doing the acting part of theater, that are doing the more tech side, so that's good to see.
That's the side of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've seen their productions, they're very just great.
Great. All right, so back to our vote language. We've got a second. We're ready to move on to votes. All in favor? Unanimous. Great. Thank you. All right, community project grants for organizations. And this is the postponed discussion from last month's meeting.
Yes.
And
I have some things to say, please. I'm gonna read them for the most part. But I wanted to give a little background, a little introduction and follow up because this is so important to us as staff and important to the community that our program runs smoothly and is trusted and dependable and reliable. I do want to note that this isn't a particular problem with the system at large. We have a guideline in our text, in our rubric, and our system and our process, but we needed to like talk to our attorney about how to play it out because we haven't gone through that process before, right? And before we get to that process, even I want to step back and note that our grant program is open to public feedback and we adjust the grant program every single year to accommodate both the community's changing needs and to improve our work as staff. Every year we ask for feedback. You can send it to me anytime. I frankly keep a big list of our feedback. I have feedback for next year already, but you're welcome to send it to me anytime, any of you, any members of the public. We begin looking at it very seriously starting in July, build the program together with the commissioners so you are comfortable approving the new version in October. We have a system to make adjustments for the upcoming year that we've done now for 10 years, right? And also we have the very exciting cultural planning process that will give us a chance to step back even further and examine the program as a whole and get feedback from the very broad community, right? So to reiterate, we have a guideline, we have a process to address the commission's concerns for this round, and we will build the program in the upcoming year to improve it after this cycle. So we're all comfortable should other adjustments come up, right? And if you're watching a recording, if you're watching right now, for any of you in the audience, please share your feedback with us. We really appreciate it. And I absolutely list everything we talked through, any and all of your concerns and our staff concerns as well. We want to make this as transparent and as useful as possible for everyone.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Clarify?
please, sure.
So if I understand you correctly, to the way that we scored these grants was under the rules and guidelines of what we agreed to last year.
Right.
We can't rebuild the plane now that it's flying, but we can and so in the discussion that's upcoming, we can't adjust or rethink about our process at that point, but we can. in the future.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure it was clear before we go into the next portion of our discussion.
Yes, that's, thank you. Okay, I asked you. That was great, thank you. So very specifically about the discussion that we'll have tonight about your commission concerns for the community projects or organizations decision that was postponed last time. The first is that, I will put this up here, or I'll wait to show it, but the staff does recommend that we keep the same, motion as previously because we assume good intent in scoring. And our precedent, as we just saw, is to follow the highest scores. And that is it. That has been the precedent, right? The second note is that there's been no violation of the code of conduct for commissioners scoring. The code of conduct prohibits city officials from profiteering from public office. And so there's no financial gain from adjusted scoring in this case. There is no violation. And for all y'all to take an action, you'll follow Robert's rules and complete a vote, and that includes changing or adjusting or removing any scores. You do need to vote on any kind of score change, and that's just as a group to make a group agreement on that. And finally, based on the questions that arose at the previous meeting on April 24th, 2024, we offer that the Boulder Arts Commission grant program scoring system and rubric, which is the one that was agreed upon in October. It states, quote, before the grant awards process begins, panel members are trained in how to interpret the scoring system. Rubrics are set of criteria, which helps reduce the possibility of subjective scores based on personal preferences. Please keep in mind, however, that although panel decisions follow this set of criteria, scores could reflect a small degree of subjectivity individual to each panel member. Panel members must be able to defend their scores with observations about each application's specific strengths and weaknesses during the scoring and the rescoring process. Is there any questions before I hand it back to
Sorry.
That's okay, it was a lot, yeah.
So I think you glossed over this part, which I think was part of the discussion. I just want to emphasize it.
Yes,
So when all of us score, we check a box whether or not we have a conflict of interest.
right,
And so we self-monitor ourselves.
Right.
And so you read the statement, so we're doing that, and you read the statement that conflict of interest. Can you read that again?
Oh, sure.
What a conflict of interest. I think you.
the code of conduct technically is what is in our.
Is the conflict of interest.
Right, related. Prohibits city officials from profiteering from public office. And since there's no profit or like financial gain, then there's no conflict.
With which to recuse yourself.
Yeah, right. So there's no reason to recuse yourself from that case, because there's no chance of financial.
Because that was a discussion at the last meeting.
Right, yeah.
You can make circle back to that, quite frankly. I mean, I think based on our previous conversation, I think that might be the point. We might have further discussion.
Sure.
I like that, Jeff. I think maybe you brought up the novel.
Why don't we move forward with what is on the agenda and then, if there's continued need.
I like the, thank you for going into the definitions.
Mhm,
It helped
sure.
me.
Great.
So I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to preface, the section that we're moving into on the agenda, with just some personal comments, because I was not at the meeting last month. And so I'm just gonna read it directly.
But I would like to read.
I have the floor, right, so. I would like to take a few moments to record my initial thoughts on the record since I was not at the April 2024 meeting. I've reviewed the recording of the meeting. Georgia, I value your voice and perspective on this commission, especially in relation to lifting up artists that have been historically underrepresented and marginalized in the city of Boulder. I view that as important work of the Arts Commission, expressed in our rubric through the fact that we have an entire section dedicated to cultural equity considerations within proposed programs. So I was shocked to see your scores for the Creative Nations application. While I understand that commissioners can bring different perspectives to their scoring, your scores on this application indicate to me that something else is going on and appear on their face to incorporate bias against the Dairy Arts Center and or Creative Nations project. I'm eager to hear your explanation on your scoring, and I hope that it helps clear up my following deep concerns. Concern that the rubric was not actually followed by you. The effect of your scoring serves the effect that your scoring serves is to veto the thoughtful scoring of each other commission. That your stated considerations for your scores fall outside the rubric and effectively usurp the desires of city council for how funds is allocated. And the fact that the scoring may erode trust in the process within the arts community and the voters who supported the two-way passage. So I'll close those as my personal comments. And did you have my language? Or okay. So in looking back on the meeting and the general tenor of the conversation, I want to place a motion in front of the commission and then have some very detailed conversation questions. So the motion I would like to propose is the elimination of Georgia's scores from the consideration of what are the top scores for the public, for the organizational projects. So that's my motion.
For all of Georgia's scores or just for the dairy?
For the, thank you for the clarification, for the dairy, And if we would like to have a conversation on that, we can second the motion, have a conversation, we can see where we are in support for.
My understanding is that she has the opportunity to justify the score, is that correct?
Yes, and I do have some specific questions, and we can get into the conversation. If there's a motion.
Then I would second that motion.
So, I do want to also preface this by just acknowledging that you did get a question ahead of time.
Yes.
And what I'd like to do is go through the questions that Georgia has been presented with, so everybody has an opportunity to hear her perspective on them. I'd like to open it up to any follow-up questions for particular area of conversation at that time, and then after we've gone through the prepared questions, if you still have questions, you can open that up to commissioners. And I'd like to remind you all that given what Lauren had to say and the fact that this is looking at the process as it currently is, that any of those questions be focused on the rubric and her scoring and not go into perceived bias, perceived, any of this. That's really not within the scope of what we've been talking about today. So any questions, it's kind of on the initial overview. Okay. So
I have a question.
you guys have a question.
So I thank you for your questions. I didn't feel like it really covered my perspective and why I voted the way that I did. So I wrote something and I timed it. It's 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
Okay.
That I'd like to share. Okay. Explaining why.
Okay, I'll allow that, but again, within the scope of what this commission can look at, it's the rubric and your ability to defend the specific scores and how they relate to the rubric. So I'll give you that 2.5 minutes to give your overview, but I'm not sure that if it's going beyond the scope of the questions, it's probably beyond the scope of what we can be talking.
The way that I wrote it was coming from the perspective of you were asking, how does this apply to rubric? So that's how I wrote this.
Okay.
How my perspective applies.
Okay, so we can all take that under consideration, and I will start. Clock on everyone.
I know there have been a lot of questions about my vote for the Darius Community Project grant. Writing to provide more information on how I voted and why. When I first read the grant, it appeared to me that it was very clear demonstration of systemic racism and continued oppression of historically marginalized group of people. I wanted to give the theory the benefit of a doubt. I wanted to prove myself wrong. So I did a bit of research and asked the theory the question, why did Creative Nations not write this grant? Their response was that they didn't have the time, money, or resources to write their own grant. That for me was a red flag. There are a number of grant writing workshops and financial support for individuals and groups who need help so they too can rise and have ownership and pride in their endeavors. I believe Creative Nations is fully capable of writing their own grants. I believe the people of Creative Nations are fully capable of being restored to an empowered people who take ownership of their culture and its workshops to celebrate and conserve their traditional ancestral arts. But they are not, because they are continuing to be told they can't. They are told they need the dairy to write their grants for them and their events. When you're a group of people that have been told this for hundreds of years, you come to believe it. What I know is Creative Nations does not make the dairy to write their grant, but the dairy does need Creative Nations for this grant. Social sector leaders who speak for marginalized groups engage in harmful behavior that excludes marginalized communities from making decisions that affect their own lives. This system of oppression needs to end. Policy systems have to change. It's now 2024, and this type of behavior should not be tolerated. I've been asked how this applies to the rubric. I also vote with our community cultural plan in mind. The score of 1 implies a few strengths and numerous weaknesses. A major weakness is one that severely limits impact. The dairy grant application has numerous and major weaknesses that not only limits positive impact, but also has a severe negative impact to Indigenous people. The rubric and our community cultural plan also speak to the fair and equitable distribution of funds, how a project serves a community. When I think of the dairy's grant and these points in the rubric and community plan, I see ones, including the Boulder focus, because systemic racism and oppression serves no one. Well, maybe just one. Thank you.
Yeah, you got there. Okay. All right, so we'll start with the questions that were provided to you at that time. And I have 4 major questions, some of them are self-elections. So the first is, during the April 2024 meeting, you stated in defense of how you arrived at your source for this project under the rubric. Quote, I look in the rubric and there were some things in the budget that were glaringly inappropriate and not okay. And then I have some times from meeting. And quote, I put on workshops, I know the cost of these things. When I look at a budget that has multiple thousands of dollars for beads, a red flag arises. And when I see the salary that they're paying someone, I know how much they get paid. So the first question is, if you can identify what portion of the rubric specifically allows for or requires a review and analysis of the proposed budget of an applying organization during the application.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I think that answer. Yeah. It's, okay.
These are my answers. Okay, yeah, cool. The cultural equity portion of the rubric states, among the goals of the Boulder Arts Commission is to encourage the equitable, fair, and just distribution of funds and support the community. This is one of the many reasons why I took a look at the budget to ensure that there is fair and just distribution of funds that supports the community. The cultural grant program scoring system and decision process document states, please keep in mind, however, that although panel decisions follow this set of criteria scores, but reflect a small degree of subjectivity individual to each candidate member. Therefore, I'm also allowed to factor in my own personal knowledge into the score.
And then if you have any further explanation of your score of a one, if you wish to that section, using those criteria.
Can I just grab the way that?
Okay. And then the final question in this section, the applicant,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did you
Okay.
ask me this, Dee?
I did, yeah, so going back, can you please explain your score of one in relation to that section? Using the criteria set forth in the rubric.
In the cultural equity section, I scored a 1 because it offers no or very few advances for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a predominantly white organization uses a historically marginalized community to obtain grant funding that perpetuates oppression and its abuse of systemic racism. Other organizations have shifted this problem by empowering Black people and making room for them in leadership roles, assisting in their own grants, and providing space for such communities to thrive.
Okay, so the applicant, the dairy, stated the following in their response to questions. Hi, welcome. In response to questions, in terms of budget, the price of sewing and beading supplies is marginally higher than average wholesale due to a desire to purchase from native-owned suppliers such as 4Generation Creations. Please explain what impact this had on your decision not to change your store.
When I compared the prices on Amazon and Etsy, the prices appeared to be comparable. There was no between the four.
And I'll open it up for questions on this subject matter only. This is the question about using the budget of the organization answered under the rubric. If anybody has follow-up questions, we'll be out of the way. Respective answers. Okay, moving on. So question 2. During the April 2024 meeting, it was stated by a commissioner. In 5 years, I've never seen any commissioner vote once across the board. How would you explain that? Your response was, because I think that I have a very different perspective. I think I have the type of personality where if I see something happening that shouldn't be happening, I will have that difficult conversation. I can't say why you haven't seen this before, but I will say I speak up when I see something is not going as it should. So I can't answer the question why you haven't seen this before. I don't know. Please explain where in the rubric these stated considerations are properly incorporated into the vote under the rubric. Please explain your score of a 1 in relation to that section using the criteria assessment.
So my statement was in response to Bruce's question that he's not seen ones before. This has nothing to do with how I vote. He was asking me about how others vote and why. This question takes some comments of context to provide clarity and pinpoint point so that I answer honestly and ask questions even when it's.
And do you have any that has no time into the rubric?
He was asking a question, in my perspective, he was asking about why has he never seen ones before? So he's asking about people that I don't know who've been on the commission before, and he's asking me to explain why they never voted ones before. But I don't know these people and I don't know how they voted, so I don't know why that my answer should be applied to the reader. Because it was answering a completely different question.
Anybody have follow-up questions? Okay, third question. One area of the scoring on the rubric is proposed outcomes and evaluation strategy. Applicants are asked, describe your evaluation strategy for this project and how you will collect qualitative and quantitative data. The full answer, we read the full response from the dairy and then return to the question. The full response was Creative Nations programs and activities are organized around the following goals. Accurate representation, to provide an accurate representation of Native arts in Colorado and surrounding areas. Focus on the next generation, to create opportunities, resources, and platforms for emerging artists and youth through exhibitions, performances, and mentorship. Inclusion and balance, to foster empowerment of women and two-spirit and non-binary energies through Indigenous cultural traditions, to bring about a balance between the masculine and feminine and sacred space, to establish a dedicated multifunctional creative space for individual artists from different nations representing different art forms together in sacred creativity. We plan to collect qualitative data and conversations and requests for feedback from participating families, artists, members of the AIPC, and community members visiting the exhibition to evaluate program commitments and skills. We also plan to collect quantitative data surrounding participating students and artists, artworks created, exhibited, and sold, and visitors to the final exhibition. So, under the section, under the rubric, a vote of one reflects evaluation strategy for evaluating the program project success is lacking. Goals, measures, and plans for data collection are not in place. In the reply, Creative Nations lists 4 specific goals for the program. The Creative Nation program response also states we plan to collect qualitative data, which I just read, and we also plan to collect qualitative data, which I just read. Please explain how your score of 1 is allowed to.
So it doesn't list what tools will be used. Are they using paper and pen? Are they using technology? Or what software is used, what language will be used to collect the data? Doesn't speak to alternative measures for those who may not be able to read or write, or how to connect with those who are undocumented. There's also no mention of those who are vision and or hearing impaired. There appears to be a large gap in understanding of how to engage the population that's grant needs to be served.
Any follow-up questions for this session?
Were you consistent in your consideration of questions when querying all other organizations? Consistent in your question of all other organizations for this grant process, asking what programs they were using and anything.
Depending on what I know from working with the folks in the mobile home communities. These are real issues, and these are real issues when I think about like when I'm doing diverse programming and trying to reach marginalized people, you know, understanding that some of them don't. It's important question. So yes, if I'm reading the grant that's saying they're serving this community and trying to collect data from them, then yes, they do ask those questions.
And your score reflects that
I believe so.
consistently across the other organizations as well.
Anyone else? Okay, 4th and final question that I have prepared. One area of the scoring on the rubric is Boulder focus. Applicants are asked, are you a Boulder organization / individual serving Boulder, or are you an organization / individual outside of Boulder? And to what degree do you focus on the program? A vote of the rubric reflects not based in Boulder, programs only occasionally offered in Boulder, few connections to Boulder business and workers, no ties. The full response from the Creative Nations project and the dairy is, as a Boulder institution for over 3 decades, the Dairy Arts Center primarily serves residents of Boulder County. Over 50% of our audience members are residents, and one of our core services remains providing below market value rentals to Boulder arts organizations. This year, the dairy's visual arts program also dedicated a Caruso Lounge area on the west side of the building as our new locals only gallery, featuring rotating exhibits of Boulder-based artists. sourced entirely by free ongoing open call. Creative Nations Programs seeks to engage members of the Boulder community, whether native or not, through majority-free or low-cost programming, celebrating not only native tradition, culture, and heritage, but also educating non-native residents about the land of Arapaho, North Cheyenne, Osage, Sacoan, Southern Ute, and Mountain Ute that our city resides on, expanding and deepening the perception of what it means to be a Boulderites. Back to my question. The Dairy Center is the applicant. In part, the Dairy Center stated, as read, that they've been in Boulder for over 3 decades and are primarily serving residents of Boulder County. Please explain how your score of one.
As stated above, there's an allowance from my personal perspective. I also choose to look at the community cultural plan and make my decisions. In the cultural plan, it states, support the resiliency and sustainability of cultural organizations to enhance their ability to benefit the community. The continued use of Creative Nations and other indigenous organizations by the dairy to obtain grant monies is a disservice and is harm to a larger portion of our community. And I believe in what I just read, as I voted, I gave a 1. In the Boulder focus because of the systemic racism and oppressive oppression, certainly. So I don't see that as just going to community. But with this system, with this particular thing. Anybody have follow-up questions?
The representation and leadership from Creative Nations. As well as leadership from the dairy, had stated that Creative Nations lives under the umbrella of the Dairy Center. And that they even donated space that was present for the center to house the programming part of this organization. And they actually forewent putting in their own programmatic grant application to amplify and spotlight this specific program under the umbrella of the Dairy Center.
Right, and the dairy donated space by a grant that they received because of their partnership with nations. So they got that space that Creative Nation actually paid their partnership. Because the dairy wouldn't get that money without the partnership.
I'm not quite sure how the business plan works, whether that granting or not. I don't believe that's the case. But again, the dairy did not put in something for other programs that they would like to promote. Instead, they had spotlighted, amplified Creative Nations as their program of choice to put up for this particular consideration.
So you just said that, but this is something I actually have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, just finish your point.
Okay, you mentioned that Creative Nations is under the umbrella of the dairy.
Right.
So Creative Nations is not their own organization. So the dairy is put in the dairy for this grant.
It is a program within dairy affairs.
Supporting the own program. It's not like Creative Nations, it's its own entity, but they're partnering. Well, there's no, it's just that it's within, and that to me again, is this systemic.
It's a nationally recognized program that's accredited.
That's great that it's nationally recognized, so it's not, the dairy is not supporting someone else, it's supporting itself. The money is going to the dairy, not to Creative Nations. Creative Nations is not, it's actually the
It's a program.
dairy. So that was my question. That I asked them. Go ahead, sorry.
My question in general, has the dairy written grants for other organizations, or is this the first time that's happened? I don't know. For other like events and stuff like that.
It is.
not to just repeat what you said, but it is a program of the dairy.
Okay.
So they have written for their visual arts program or the dairy or other programs that they partner with or manage or work with that are happening.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So they're not separate.
In my very early stages of being on the Arts Commission and reviewing all these applications, I am seeing that there are many applicants that present their own programs that are then housed at the dairy, like Here Is Now, See Us. So just to reflect upon that, yes, there are also outside organizations that appear to apply for grant funds and then have partnered with the dairy. And the dairy has agreed to house those programs.
Yes, but Dairy's not submitting it.
Exactly.
Right, but these are their own organizations, like they are empowered to have control of their own thing. You know, they could partner with the dairy, they could partner with Nomad Playhouse because they are their own thing, and they're not dependent on the dairy to survive. They get to survive at their own. No, I was-
Different topic.
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
Yep.
So Georgia, something you said earlier, and I'm sorry if I misunderstood, but I was getting the impression that you feel like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so just to say what I thought of, that perhaps the leadership of the dairy did not fully represent the diversity that they were trying to reflect with this program. You said it differently, so you know, my apologies. And I wanted to kind of see if I could, you talk about systematic racism. I just take that as being the leadership of the organization is not inherently diverse. And that was one of your concerns.
No, it's,
Trying to sort around that issue.
so no, it's just a system. And whether it's the dairy or any other organization, it's a system where a majority, like all white organization will grab onto a marginalized organization and say, oh, we're gonna partner with you. We're gonna write a grant for $10,000. We'll pay your instructors each $500, so $1,500, and the rest goes in our pocket. If there's anything left over, we'll keep it or keep it on the lines, you know? And and that's a system, so they're only, so there's this other organization is staying, they're getting this little trickle of money for their event that wouldn't happen without them, but it's not enough so that it runs. So there's a system that keeps them where they are. There's a system of like, you can't do this without us. You know, there's not, and like I said, to course correct, we're going to support the marginalized group and the volunteering time to help them write a grant or pointing them in the direction of grant writing workshops, you know, or whatever, so that they are empowered. They're told you can do this on your own, and they get to decide where they want to have their event. Maybe it's at the dairy, maybe it's at one of their tribal nations facilities, so they're paying rent to that, you know, to their organization, their group, you know, so that they're rising up instead of this one organization that's always been there, that's always gotten the money, that's always gotten, you know, the big support stays while marginalized, other groups of parents. Does that answer the question?
The concept, but then is that the exact scenario things happen with the dairy? That they don't have the diversity that represents the groups that are underneath them? Or creative nations in this case? So you think that their leadership?
So the leadership of the dairy, I don't see that it has any diversity. You know, from what I know, because I looked on the website, I've been in board meetings, I've been on their DEI teams. So from what I've seen,
So for me, that was the root of what I was hearing.
no, it's not.
And the dairy has been a really fantastic incubator for this unique program representing underrepresented natives as part of this. And where I was going, it's
See, I would have to disagree, because to me, if it was really successful, Native Nations would have started as this little baby within the dairy, and it would have been poured into it, would have grown and gotten big enough to move out on its own. You know,
That's gonna happen. There's no.
well, if it's how our nations and Native Nations been.
well, it's housed in a very prominent location in a building that supports 100 arts organizations. So I think it's in a pretty ideal location as it is.
I would disagree. As a person of color, if I had the opportunity to start something within the dairy, I would want the support to grow and be on my own. It's actually something I'm trying to do, to have a center that is run by marginalized groups of people. You know, whether they're Black or brown or hard of hearing, or sight impaired.
That may be
Because there
their
is-
ultimate goal. I'm not gonna talk about what represent all goals. I do know that in the last meeting, it was not a heated rebuttal and conversation from the leadership of the Dairy Arts Center or anyone before it was the representative and the executive director and founder of Native Nations. It was here for years. Expanding his application.
Right, and like I said, sometimes what systemic racism looks like is an individual that is not even aware of how they're being used. And that's. Like I said, after being told for hundreds of years, you can't do it on your own, you believe it, and so then you support that, when it's not true. There are plenty of Black-owned businesses, indigenous groups that own and run themselves.
Anybody else have further questions? Do you mind reading that? I just wanna reframe where we are with this, what the overall question is, this little, yeah.
I'll skip the first couple of
Yeah.
sentences, but please keep in mind that although panel decisions follow this set of criteria, scores could reflect a small degree of subjectivity individual to each panel member. Panel members must be able to defend their scores with observations about each application's specific strengths or weaknesses during the scoring and rescoring process.
So if there's no more conversation, the motion on the floor is.
So let me just, if you don't mind, give me 1 second.
I didn't read it. I guess I can just restate what I said. Was to remove George's scoring for the dairy arts center program from the overall scores. That was what was seconded. So we should take a vote on that next.
And may I change my response to Jeffrey? You asked if I voted consistently the same over every grant, and I don't see systemic racism in that. So yeah, I said, I believe I do, but when thinking that, I don't, because I don't see that.
That wasn't my question. My question was, were you having consistent considerations regarding your questioning as to what vehicles they were using for showing?
And I guess before moving to the vote, I guess where my head is right now is I appreciate all the answers, and as I think about it individually, it goes beyond what we are asked to evaluate and directed by city council to take under consideration. That's my personal view on it.
Well, the growth and sustainability of marginalized groups. Which is, you know, what we're trying to do, this is the exact opposite.
And I don't disagree with that. I hope that we can, whatever happens, I think this is an important discussion to continue. And make an impact in whatever ways we can, whether that's through reevaluating how we set up the rubric, what detail we ask for, questions. I think there's a lot of ways that we can mindfully take into consideration the things that we can get at that.
I think too is that the grants are getting so much more competitive, I think, they're all really good. So I think maybe in the future to branch out and look at these things.
All right. So, we'll take a vote, all in favor of.
Cheryl provided boxes.
Did Cheryl provide?
Did not.
So all in favor of removing George's votes.
Or the dairy
Or
arts.
the dairy arts. All opposed. Holding your vote?
Yes.
And so that is in the minutes.
Oh, this vote?
Yes.
Of course I don't.
So my, go ahead.
An abstention vote is a yes vote. That's it.
So we have a tie. And what happens with the tie?
Actually, in the case of a tie,
Who's working on it?
okay, we have a Robert,
Session.
yes,
For a moment.
yes, thank you.
Charlotte, while I do that, will there be an opportunity for discussion? Sure. This is involved or not? Does the issue pin?
In terms of like follow-up items, yeah, we can do that. Cause I think that's important.
So. Robert's was shared. Doesn't vote. Rest of the. If it's a tie, and the rest of the commissioners, then the chairs vote breaks. the tie.
Okay. Yeah, likely or that. Okay,
That is what I'm reading now.
Okay.
We like something else.
And can you vote on your own? Or could maybe just set that again, I think that well.
I'll answer that one because apologies. My name's Baxter Metsky.
Matt, can you come so that the recording can see you?
They can. I've been making faces.
I've had 20 years.
For recusals only required when they're. So. it's this case.
So chairperson.
So may I recommend we take a break?
Yeah, you don't mind,
Break. 5-minute break.
yes, 7:31,
We appreciate it.
thank you.
Yes, we are recording again.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you for the break. I think it would be helpful for the recording if somebody can deliver with the. The step to the front.
They say personally, but great conversation, I'm glad that we're talking to positions. Well, we don't even know where you're looking here, but I'm gonna summarize it. Yeah, so what Robert's Rules of Order say is that, that when we are voting on any motion, the chairperson is counting votes. The chairperson's vote only matters to the motion when there's a tie. So in essence, you can set Caroline's vote as the last vote and count up all the other votes, in which case it is 3 against, 2 in favor of. And that's not a tie, so Caroline's.
Opposed.
So I apologize.
3-2 opposed. So the motions are carried. And we go back to the original staff recommended.
Let's see. Okay, so I will actually show this slide to show you how it got there. Okay, so these are your scores, and because there was a tie in third place, which has happened before, it goes down according to the next category in the rubric, because when we built the rubric, it's built in order of priority by the commission, right? So the next priority is the community priorities. The next priority are cultural offerings, and the next priority is cultural equity, right? So you'll see that there's still a tie, and then finally when we get to cultural equity is when it is untied. And that's how Roots Music Project comes to the top, but it's very, very close. But this is how we have distinguished ties in the past. And again, in the future, for the future grant program, we want to look at how we work out challenges between ties. We are up for discussion, but. So this is the Community Projects for First Nations recommended motion language based on the scoring that I just showed you, which included that tiebreaker.
So we can have somebody make this motion and second it. Or there is still an option if somebody would like to put forward a different motion and also different from the one that I made. That is options.
Can you please go back to the scores? Sure. And I'm sorry to ask about this, but we have $60,000.
Yes. I know, sorry, yeah, I want to go back to the basics here.
Yeah, I'm looking at this
Yeah.
and, I know I'm supposed to say this later, but I'm looking forward to next year when we have more. Musics, because this is this is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go up to motions.
I'll make a motion. And read this. I move that Lotus Theater, Empathy Theater Project, Streetwise Arts. Foundation, the Society for Creative Aging and Roots Music Project Foundation be awarded grants as a community project for organizations.
Can we have a discussion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
Start the discussion.
Yes.
Then I'd like to discuss what we just talked about. I guess in all honesty, Georgia, I disagree with you. But I think the commission is purposely trying to hear different perspectives and diversity in how we score these. And I think that's why this group has been assembled. And so from that, I respect that your opinion is different than mine, and would caution us, I guess, in the future too, of, I think we could set a precedent too, that we start nitpicking each other's scores and deciding when and at what times we, throw out the scores. So I think, and I guess to just say, from my perspective, I think the larger organizations can be incubators for small organizations and more diverse groups. And that's the lens that I see through. So I think you and I are seeing it through completely different lenses. So, but I think my point is I respect that you see it through a different lens. That's why I'm supporting keeping your scores.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, and I think. Um, I wanna open myself to your perspective and ask you.
Just because I think there are organizations in Boulder that are established, that have space for the venue, have support staff, they have folks that can help with it. And that allows voices, in my opinion, voices that don't have all those resources at this time. It gives them an opportunity to voice their creative voice or their culture. And so I agree it's not a long-term solution, but I think the hope is always that these larger organizations can be incubators and service for a multitude of voices to come forward in a larger format. So Barry has a tremendous resource in that facility. And I think how wonderful to be able to represent, I scored Creative Nations the highest. So how wonderful to be able to share those resources and bring those to the voices. So I'm seeing it 100%
Right.
But I think that doesn't mean I'm discounting your opinion and your voice.
Yeah, just as a person of color, I think, and having spoken to lots of other marginalized groups, we feel it's good. And talk about this, because it's hard. It's hard to talk about it in a room full of people that don't know my life experience. And I think that being an incubator is one thing, but keeping an organization with in your back pocket to pull out, when you need to check a certain box, that's question. So I just don't see that as an incubator.
I think we see, like I said, we see different. So,
Well, it
and
works for
I
you.
think that's what we've been asked to do. I don't know if we're gonna reconcile our viewpoints in this conversation. That's what I just wanted to share, and that's why I voted to keep your scores in, because I think it's your opinion.
I will share that I also voted to keep your scores in part because as a previous applicant, I'm aware that you can be critical as you're going through the application process. And knowing that if we eliminated your scores from one application and not all of them, it was going to have a cascade impact. And that didn't feel fair to other applicants, and eliminating the voice across the board does not feel fair.
Could have set dangerous precedent by silencing it. And at the same time, my primary focus was the work within the city and the optics of the commission and the trust therein based on a process. So I'm glad you wrote it.
Ready to vote? All in favor? All opposed? 4-1, my vote doesn't count, I now know.
Why did we never know that?
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, figurehead.
You're welcome. Thanks, I wanna make sure that, I know that you have it on our schedule, you know. Continue to talk about this, probably retreat maybe a good time to dig into this when we're looking at rubric questions, reevaluating. So it's set up, listening to what our corporate consultants have to say. Look at me segue.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for your assistance, thank the rest of the city for, because I know you talked about a lot of departments and people, so thank you all.
Okay.
So now, our needs assessment update with the consulting team. Hold on one second, I have a little, yet another little script. Aside from Michelle, welcome, and Bill and Jill. It has been wonderful to work with both of you. I'm very excited for you to talk about our very first step in the digital planning process. I do want to note that we're going to be talking about principles that we're going to operate as we get into the budgeting season. So there's not going to be any numbers tonight. These are feedback coalesced that will that are giving us kind of principles, general ideas that we're going to function under, and that we're going to talk about as we work towards a budget. And just a reminder, the first release of the city's public budget is late August, and then generally we bring the grant budget to you in October for approval. You'll see bits and pieces of it beforehand. A reminder that the Arts Commission is asked to review these recommendations, make comments, offer feedback. And of course, you can reach out to me afterwards too, if you would like to think of something else, wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about our 2025 plan. And no formal vote is required. So I'm gonna run through your PowerPoint, right? Thank you. Great, sure. I would love to.
Anything to not.
Yeah.
Is that PowerPoint?
Maybe we should just reintroduce ourselves, that
Thank you for having us in person this time. It's great. I'm Kendall Peterson. I own Their Spirit. I'm out of Denver. And
I'm Jill Strohwell from Fort Collins.
and you can go to the next slide. So just and we're going to try to make this a little quicker than we would probably like to. And feel free to interrupt us. It's very informal. But we wanted to just give you a little bit of an overview, talk a little bit about the areas of focus that they'll all be repeat, and then we'll talk about our findings and then our recommendations, kind of slide into the recommendations. And then you can go to the next slide. So we're seeking your feedback. So ultimately, at the end of this, we will be seeking your feedback, comments, any kinds of recommendations you have looking forward.
We know our time is a little short, so the buckets will be an ongoing process, as you guys can. So it's not just have to be the end of the conversation, right, Lauren?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have rebranded this as the Bridge Year Needs Assessment. It's so much nicer. So just a reminder that this is about this Bridge Year, which is where we have this approved continuing 20-year grant that is now dedicated in part to arts. I'm sorry.
We've been talking about
Tax,
too much.
grants, sorry, 20-year tax that has been in part allocated to arts, culture, and heritage. And this will be a renewal of the general fund tax. We also know that that funding will begin in 2025, but the general GOS grants will be sunsetting in the year 2024. So I just wanted to make sure that that's one of the pieces that we'll be looking at. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the pieces is our general operating grants, the idea that these grants will be sunsetting in 2024. What do we do during this bridge year? We'll also be talking a little bit, all of the work that we did will be in preface to hopefully a community cultural plan refresh that you'll be doing. So all of the research that we do will roll into hopefully a deeper, more robust process in 2025 and beyond. And then we will also be looking at public art maintenance, so that was one of the core areas we'll look at. And then also immediate staffing needs, so we wanted to look at those three core areas. So this is a sort of a list of what we've engaged. We also have had conversations with 3 of you all in the meantime. That's at the bottom, but we had 3 facilitated listening sessions with nearly all of the GOS grantees. And then we also followed up via email. We asked for their feedback very in a text form. We had a listening session with 7 of the organizations who were either denied or did not receive grant funding or did not apply in 2022, because we want to make sure we got that feedback as well. We did focus groups with 6 of the members from Create Boulder and the 2A group. We had a number of meetings with Arts Commission representatives, 3 in particular, and city staff, including arts and culture staff, city manager, community vitality director, and all the staff in the department. We also had a really terrific presentation and discussion with the community connectors and residents. Kudos to Boulder for that program. It was really terrific, and we really enjoyed that feedback and getting the feedback. And I think it'll most of their feedback will be very, very helpful for us. You all working on the future plan for sure. We also did some research into the grants program, public art and staffing needs, and then we did our last presentation to you all. So, tonight. Well, we did one to you first, and then we're doing another one. So just an overview of our findings. So in 2022, I think this is clear that the general operating support grants were not able to support all the arts and culture organizations that apply. There's also organizations that could qualify and did not apply for one reason or another. That there's a tier system of grant amounts. The tiered system is not terribly nuanced compared to the varying budget sizes and different applicant organizations. Grant awards amounts do not increase over the 3-year period, even as inflation has increased, and we heard a lot from groups about that over the last 3 years. Also, the GOS grantees do not provide demographic data on their audiences or residents served. For some, longer than 3-year terms might be advantageous. We heard where there was a lot of sort of back and forth about that. Some people thought maybe a 5-year term. Some people love the 3-year term. So again, that's something to look into further when the cultural plan is doing its research. And also there were some perceived inconsistencies with the scoring system for grants. So again, this discussion that was had tonight will be a great opportunity for you to look into that scoring system and sort of the rubrics and everything, how it relates to your granting. We just so public art and public art maintenance. We had a couple of different meetings with Brendan and his team and also the rest of the staff. And you all are currently updating the inventory for the public art collection. We know that will probably be finished at the end of this year. And most of that is going to be determining the provenance of every work. So there's something like 300 plus works of art. So a lot of that will be, right now, we'll be trying to determine which pieces are part of the owned and maintained by this office versus parks versus transportation and some of the other departments. So I think they're coming to some conclusions by the end of the year about how many works of art are actually maintained by this office. So the 2019 maintenance report that we looked at is definitely out of date, and it also didn't prioritize any maintenance needs. It just kind of gave a dollar amount of what they thought, but it didn't prioritize. So that's a little bit of a gap. Arts and culture staff is also negotiating, so I already covered that about the final number of works that we in the program, and also we'll also figure out timing for when those come into your collection. And then staffing needs, we found that heard loud and clear that there's a lot of support needed, specifically with the staff doing its own IT, invoicing, contracting, and final tracking of projects. And that the public art program and the granting program, as they start to grow, that will only increase. Some of the positions that you all have are part-time and or grant funded, and so we'll want to look into that piece. And also the arts manager has been promoted to senior management and community vitality, so there's a need to fill that manager position as it moves forward. So finding summary.
Well, this is for the cultural plan piece that we
Yeah.
wanted to kind of share with you.
Sorry, I'm reading too much, but
Yeah.
But basically, the idea is that all of the research that we had in our many meetings, we wanted to make sure that this, all of this research that we had moves into the findings for the cultural plan. We really do believe that the two-way, this whole bridge here has reaffirmed how important it will be to work on a cultural plan moving forward. So just all of everything that we heard receives that there needs to be a little bit more deep work into the community to kind of figure out how to move forward for that next 10-year window. And we are I want to make sure that you know that all of the recommendations that we're making are very much in alignment with just this short-term bridge here, and that the community process will go full circle and make sure that happens.
We definitely kept looking forward and had to kind of contain ourselves and go like, that's not.
For 2 years,
And
yeah.
but as Kendall said, we did capture all of that information so that we can give that to the staff team and that can be used for the next couple of planning. So I'll kind of go through the draft recommendations that we have for you tonight. So for the general operating support, we really do believe that extending the GOS grant awards for an additional 4th year would be appropriate. It doesn't make sense to start another 3-year process when the cultural plan is sunsetting. You've got this new funding. There's lots of kind of we heard it tonight. There's lots of anticipation about what the future is going to be, and that tying yourselves to another 3-year process just doesn't make sense at this point in time. So through some conversations, we think that probably having a small simplified application process with those grantees to kind of request the extension will be appropriate to have some kind of a format for that to happen, some paperwork that crosses over your guys' desks. We also think that there's been quite a bit of inflation, averages about 4% a year since 2022, and so maybe increasing that grant amount by inflation. Yeah.
And those would be the first and the second, but for which there is capacity in the budget to do both of those.
Yeah, we've done some kind of back of the napkin penciling out for the staff team, so they understand what the implications, the range of these recommendations are. So then it'll be up to them and y'all to eventually, put this into your budget for moving forward. So our initial estimate is yes, but we also don't know what the conversations are going to be down the road. So that's why we're kind of refraining from going down that path. But this is our recommendation. We believe it's viable.
My recommendation, my conversation with the ladies was also, if we do an inflation increase for the existing ones, does that leave out opportunity for anyone else to additionally apply for a gap?
Right.
And what are the implications of that? So we do inflation increases for this number of organizations, but at least this number of organizations out, and who are they? So that we can kind of grasp the scope of what that looks like across the community.
Yeah, and those will be decisions you'll have to make when you actually start putting the budget together. So we have kind of those discreetly, penciled out, but that's stuff you guys will have to figure out and talk about. Need to prioritize.
I'm confused because I know that we talked and it looks here, like are you listing the options or these are the things that?
These are our recommendations.
Okay,
These are all recommended.
because we from the conversation, we all seem like we either or, but we have all of them.
Well, that's our hope, is that you'd be able to do all of them, but if the budget won't allow, we'll have to figure that out when we know what the budget amounts are. Okay. Does that make sense? And we think it's important to make that to, and even the GOS grantees who have the grant right now also felt it was important to open up a grant opportunity for those who had missed out on the last round. And we heard that from the community connectors as well. They were like, but, you know, how do we know that they wanted to see that opened up as well and make sure that one of our recommendations is to really engage the community connectors and use that mechanism and to help push the grant opportunities out to more people to make sure that everybody's aware of it and being able to participate in the program if they would like to.
As a way of being able to bring new people into the fold for that gap year. And also presenting back to those organizations going, okay, we didn't give you an inflation increase. But look at these organizations that are getting funding instead of one.
And that'll be the messaging we're calling back out.
And this is for the GOS grants, but it's also for your program grants and other elements of the program. So that's the next bullet really. And then for there's also organizations who might have moved up tier in 3 years. They might be an extra large or medium size organization now. So offering them the opportunity to go through that 1 year application process if they would like to. And maybe they went down too. So that's something you all need to. And then really we're just recommending keeping the structure the same for this bridge year as far as the timing of the grants, but we've actually been talking about moving that a little bit because it would be helpful with the grants being in closer to your budget cycle so that you could be more informed about what the project might need to be. So I think that's something internally that the staff team needs to discuss with finance to really understand if there might be, by shifting maybe into a fall application period, that might actually help you better plan for your budget changes. And then again, we're recommending to just you guys discussed tonight, we're agreeing with you, look at the granting process and the scoring process and the rubric, and you improve every year. So just keep doing that. And then also maybe we'll begin looking at other examples of programs as best practices, and we can help some guidance. So that's really, is there any questions or comments on the GOS grant recommendations? Or move on?
I would love, just in light of the conversation we had tonight, as you're identifying granting programs, just interested. The implementations that you want to have a lot.
There are a lot of different strategies that you can use. And so it's just kind of what fits the best. So just examples.
That deal with what? Who said that deals with that?
Ways of scoring.
We deal with like the systemic things that can build that in there. Kind of nuance that.
So for the public art maintenance piece, what we're really looking at is. Oh, sorry, I changed it on mine, I didn't.
Yeah.
I forget I'm not connected, I'm channeling too long. So as Kendall said, that we're really looking for that final number of how many objects and artworks are the responsibility of the public art program as opposed to other departments. And we feel like it's important to really update that maintenance plan. It's been by the end of this year, it's five plus years since that maintenance plan was done, and it wasn't as thorough as we would like to see. And then really bringing in probably a contractor to really do condition reports on every piece and figuring out what are the highest priorities and doing this in the bridge year, so then you can budget for it in 2026 to actually do some of that heavy duty maintenance that we are expecting to come to light through that process. And then also, we want to see the continuation of dedicating some funds for public art maintenance ongoing. And so that's a recommendation to maintain that moving forward. And then also considering building a small maintenance fund over time. So maybe taking a small portion of money, putting it into a reserve account that builds over time. So when we do have that catastrophic event, and then we do say when something will happen, that you have kind of a baseline amount of funding, and that'll depend on the works that are in their collection and their value and their makeup as kind of what that number would be. So that'll be something to look at for the future. Question?
No, just that the maintenance plan is something that we think is definitely warranted in this bridge year. So it'll probably give you an outlook for the next 5 years of work on the collection. That's the window that we usually look at with public art.
This was very eye-opening for me that we didn't have an inventory of all of the arts that have been, artworks that have been created publicly and who owns them and who's responsible for the maintenance. And what's the current grade of the, right, exactly. So going and actually visiting each one as well and then coming up with a plan.
It's a big job.
Right, and making sure that when we're looking at the future budget for public art, setting aside 20% for ongoing maintenance of things that exist.
And then the last area we dug into was really immediate staffing needs. And although we all really feel like there's a clear need for additional staff in the department, we feel like from the original cultural plan 2015, it called for a 6-person staff. There's obviously needs and gaps within the existing staff with moving forward and then having a dedicated fund, a special, fund and all these things. There's going to be some more work to be done and more specialty to bring into the department. But we just really felt like during this bridge year, didn't make sense for us to recommend bringing on any permanent staff until you go through maybe a more robust process to understand what the needs are, what your programmatic needs will be in over the next 5 or 10 years. So what you'll see here is really we're looking at a consultant to deliver your cultural plan update. And maybe, well, I think in our opinion, it'd be great to start that in 2024, 2025. It is the closeout of the 10-year plan. 2015 is this year. So really thinking about what you want to do moving forward with that. And then, yeah, just what I said. And then obviously the contracting for the public art maintenance plan will be the other thing that would involve, hiring.
Another thing we heard from the community was just being really cautious about staff. And that there was a lot of urging you all to put as much money out to the organizations as possible. So that conservative recommendation of not doing an FTE is based on a little bit of the community, but also we don't actually know exactly what you need yet, and that'll be something that we were building in the community.
Yeah, if you have new priorities and things you may want to, have a different staff person than we would recommend right now. So we can, hamstring the team by putting in the wrong positions. So that really wraps up our recommendation. So we welcome your feedback, and we know that it's 8:04 and you're supposed to end at 8 o'clock. So thank you for hanging out for 4 extra minutes with us, 5 extra minutes with us, and
You guys.
that's a chance to kind of share those.
Details that it's in the process, I'm sorry, I should know this, but I.
I think we might need Lauren's help with that.
Yes, so next up from this would be, we'll get a final report, we'll feed it into our behind the scenes staff budgeting process. And then we'll start contracting ideally sometime soon, in the next couple months for the full year or the full cultural plan, the full extensive cultural plan. And I mean, last time, the 2015 cycle, we had thousands of surveys. We would work with the community connectors, our engagement office, lots of press, lots of engagement. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be wonderful. We just need to sort some things out first before we get there.
And we have a number of decisions that are related to the budget that we don't have yet. When is that expected?
So the staff will bring a proposed budget to city council. The city council's goes live to the public on August 30th. And then the commissions starts looking at the budget later in the year, September, October, and you approve the full grant program together with the budget breakdown in October at the retreat, right? We have a kind of ceremonial approval of work plan and budget and grant program, when you look through all of the documents. So it'll be a little while, unfortunately, until we get anything for specific numbers, because we have to go through the full city's budget process as well, right? This is like making sure that everybody in the city is all agreeing on, we're part of a much bigger system. Right?
And then as part of the staff recommendations, will you have it broken down like on that one slide? We do the inflation increase.
Oh, sure.
Both of those bullet,
yeah.
What are the different options?
Yes.
That's part of that
Yes.
portion of the process.
Right, and I'm sure that we will, but I would like to bring forward a really solid staff recommendation that also ties to what the city would like to see to, right, like to go together with all of the wonderful input that you got. I mean, they spoke to, I think, almost every general operating support grantee, a lot of people that declined, like they have a lot of incredible feedback here. So we will combine all of the opinions, put them into staff recommendation for you and tell you how also where that came from, and make sure that you're all. Yeah,
So for our part, we're gonna develop our final report and we'll deliver that to the staff team, and our goal was to get it done so that they could infuse it into the budget process as they're thinking about 2025's budget. They would have this data and information so that they could be, putting that into their thought process for putting together their annual 2025 budget and going through the process. So that's our goal.
Would there be an opportunity for us to review the draft report? Or it's fine.
Oh. Yeah. I think that's all right. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see what they put in it. I mean, I think it's gonna be very similar to what you think, but sure. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can meet.
There's not
I'll get you a
gonna
coffee.
be lots of
Maybe just
That was the 10-cent
just a few more words to make sentences of all
Yeah, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I might remind everyone that the commissions, all the commissions and boards across the city serve as advisors to city council. The city council gets to approve the budget, and the city manager presents the budget. So we want your input. We want to make sure that the themes that we're putting together that are going to guide the numbers that we put into the city manager's budget, they're consistent with what you're doing. So we're really wanting to make sure you're feeling like this work is on track. And as we start plugging numbers in that are consistent with the themes thinking that's been presented today, we certainly, will be able to present those numbers to you once they are live later on in the summer. And continue to solicit feedback in the process.
And maybe it's hard to kind of digest it all here right at the meeting, so if we won't submit that probably for a little bit, so if you wanna read it and digest it and give feedback. Yeah, yeah, so you're welcome to do that, I don't think we're fine probably, what do you think, maybe over the next week?
Oh,
Or so, we could, if you
Yeah.
wanna take some
If you wanna
time
go
to
for
read it.
coffee, we can talk through all of it. I'm glad you're all so interested and excited in it. So
Yeah.
please, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you're welcome to give
That's right.
some feedback. Ask us.
Maybe a question for Jeffrey, Georgia, and Carolyn, you interviewed, right? Does this align with your discussions?
It aligns with what we discussed with them, but more importantly, it also aligns with the artists and leaders in our community.
I think my comments to them kind of are more to the ridgier.
And we found that a lot. In every single meeting we had and every interview, it always went beyond the bridge years. And everyone's like, yeah. This year is great, but it's beyond that. And so that is why there's a little bit of urgency around that cultural plan, so that you can have that big discussion.
Knowing that we have the opportunity to make some transformation within that ridge.
I think there's a real expectation in the community that conversation continues, that this is just a tee up to that and that it continues. That we got that up.
Just hope and anticipation that there'll be a more robust conversation about it.
Thank you for all your time and your work.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It was a speed round, it was fun.
Thank you very much, and thanks for letting us kind of speed through that. All right, Lauren.
Thank you all so much. If there are any final questions from the management staff, while you're thinking about that, I did have 2 updates that I emailed you about, and I was really excited about our public art program. The Western City Campus requests for proposals are open. You can send that to your public art friends.
Oh, yeah.
We have 3 big projects that'll go into the Western City Campus, which is the Alpine Balsam, the hospital that used to be there. And then also Creative Neighborhoods is open, which is one of our other awesome public art programs that we're trying to put artwork into different neighborhoods. It's, I believe, first come, first served, but it needs to also be spread out across the Boulder sub-communities, and there's funding to get artwork in your neighborhood. So please share about both of those, and let me know if you have questions, and actually, then I'll send it to Brendan, because he knows what it's happening. Great, thank you.
All right, and with that, I'll adjourn our meeting.
Pretty good.